there's this belief that current state is future state. And I think that's a really risky assumption because it gets you stuck in current state and it stops you from stretching.
You're listening to the How Manufacturers Improve podcast, hosted by me, Kirby Sneen with the Manufacturers Alliance. If you've ever wondered how some manufacturing leaders have become so successful, then you're in the right place. In each episode, we cover the successes and lessons learned of industry leaders, and then I break it all down into actionable insights so that you can use them to make improvements. This episode is all about staying coachable as a leader and features manufacturing executive Steve Murray. Enjoy. Steve, really excited. In fact, I'm honored to feature you on the podcast on this topic, staying coachable as an executive. Thanks for making the time.
Kirby, I appreciate the invitation. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
I got to know you even better recently when we had that cup of coffee. Yep. But I mean, I've known you, through the Alliance for quite some time. So I feel like, I really got a good understanding of kind of what you bring to the table experience-wise. But I know everyone listening isn't in that same spot. So would you bring them up to speed with your background?
So with pleasure. So I grew up in Duluth. There used to be an Air Force base up there. Dad retired. And I went to university. I went to the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and got an accounting degree. All right, so kind of boring. What am I doing here? When I got out of school, and this was in the early 80s, 1982, to date myself, I was offered a position with a company called Advanced Machine Company. And it was a privately held company in the floor maintenance industry. And it was a highly vertically integrated company. We did vacuum cleaners, a small that you could strap on your back, all the way up to these V8 engine-driven rider sweepers. And the owner's philosophy was if you controlled your processes, you controlled your cost and your quality. And so we had a 450 union employee shop. We had lasers and turret presses and machining centers and mills and lathes. We had rotational molding, injection molding, vac forming. We had welding and liquid coating and powder coating. We even had an aluminum foundry. So it was just a classic traditional American company. It trades under Nilfisk Advanced. They kind of wiped out the manufacturing a little bit. So, but that's the legacy. So when I came in, I went into the accounting department, but I went on the costing side, which pulled me more into operations. So routings and standard labor and bill of materials and margins. And I did that for a few years, and they wanted to do, Advanced Machine Company wanted to do a startup. They wanted to expand operations into Wales, into Great Britain.
Nice.
And I was 25 and single. They asked me if I wanted to move to Wales, and it was, when do I pack? And but it was a true startup. We had to get facility, we had to get machine tools, we had to put in production systems, we had to hire employees. The way you went to market in Europe was different for each of the countries. We had foreign currencies, we had IT, we just had all of the business systems required. We had multilingual service networks, all of the business systems that need to get put into place. I got a chance to put in. Two of us went over, and early in my career, and this was a blessing, I went over as the controller, but one of my early mentors was a manufacturing guy from the parent company. And he fed me with, here's books you should read, and here's some courses that you need to take. And it was really that influence that really got me into manufacturing and really laid the foundation of my career. So my value proposition is I'm familiar with every business system required to run a manufacturing companies, and I've implemented them. So that's what I kind of leverage. And so I run companies. I was there for 8 years. 11 years in total with the company, and shortly after I got back, I had my first president position. And in fact, two of the companies I ran won the Manufacturer of the Year award. It was under art.
I remember,
but nonetheless,
I still support it.
A two-time winner. I use it.
So
that's a little bit of a long story. Kirby,
so these days they're calling it operational excellence. Used to be kind of lean manufacturing. What did they call it back in the day?
So it was excellence in manufacturing.
Oh, okay.
And so instead of it was more process mapping or flow charting might have been the equivalent. It was still, it was continuous improvement. So the words have kind of shifted a little bit, but and some of the tactics a little bit, but the concepts were the same.
I've been told that before I was born, they used to call it demand flow technology.
So, DFT. So it's demand flow. That's a discrete way you feed lines. But yes, that's a sub technology, and even the classics, the books. Was the goal with Eli Goldrath and the Toyota Production System by Toyota.
Yeah.
Edwards Deming, Out of the Crisis, and Phil Crosby, the quality books they're foundational books that are every bit as applicable today than when they were written in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But that's how I cut my teeth.
Okay, so I think there's a segue in there then to go from, your background and staying coachable. You mentioned the theory of constraints. Goldratt, the book, everyone should read it. They should know where their bottleneck is. In some cases, leaders, in my opinion, are the bottleneck when they're not being as coachable as they should and they have blind spots. Now, by definition, it's a blind spot. Over the years, how have you discovered yours?
So that's an interesting question. It's kind of a fun question because you're right. You don't know it's a blind spot because it's blind. So unfortunately, you don't recognize it until something happens. And it might be catastrophic. Experientially, often people get promoted before they have all of the skills necessary to move into that position. That happened with me. I had one instance where I'm 28 and now I'm in charge of the manufacturing group. The gentleman still, that I replaced still worked for me. He was 20 years older than I am. And we had a CNC mill and a piece that was being cut broke free and it damaged the spindle. Okay. It was a 12,000 pound sterling, about $18,000 repair. And it's going through the corrective action. It's like, well, we hadn't greased the chucks. Okay. And so corrective action is, well, we need a more robust routine maintenance and, predictive maintenance, but a routine maintenance, we need a more robust routine maintenance. Well, how do I know that? I'm an accountant. I'm a 28-year-old accountant just moving into manufacturing. So in those instances, that's really where it's helpful to have a mentor. Ideally, it's your boss. We would do exercise as part of the strategic planning is we'd look at a functional areas and anticipate what some of the key risks, the blind side, the blind spot things that might come up. And so if a process failed, would a line go down? If a critical employee left, what would be the implication? If a supplier's lead time pushed out, and we would just we would review functional areas. What's the biggest safety risk in this specific area? Often it's a box cutter and lifting, twisting. So we would try and anticipate some of those blind spots, but there's nothing like a mentor who's done it, been there, seen it, to bounce ideas off to help you see them before they happen. Sometimes they can be catastrophic.
I want to veer off just for a second because I know a lot of people are interested in how you can manage people that are older than you. So you've obviously, as a senior officer and executive, you've been on both ends of the spectrum. What are your tips and advice there?
So it's a two-way relationship. Okay, if there's been instances where they recognize that, okay, that's the way it is. And ideally, it's not out of nepotism, it's out of competency. So Bill accepted, okay, you're studying this harder, you're driving it faster, this makes sense. And he was a great partner. And I've had others that they're just not gonna. They're just not gonna. And so at that point, you either work around them, or you find a way to replace them or change their roles. But it's really at some point it comes, are you going to work with me or not? And sometimes those conversations are hard. But good people, if you can come up with a common goal and create a little bit of energy, camaraderie, that they eventually come around.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
When I get into fight or flight mode, I fight. And so I know that that's a blind spot of mine. And so I have to work to make sure that doesn't become a problem. That pulls me out of my learning zone. I'm less willing to listen and take it in.
Right.
What pulls you out of your learning zone? And then how do you make sure you stay in that zone?
So again, that's a real life issue, right? So over the course of my career, I found that if I didn't consciously keep personal development a priority, I would slip. Okay, so what did that mean? Is like it was important to me, so I found time, and there'd be time I'd read books during the workday. Okay, so who doesn't have 15, 20, 30 minutes? So I would make it a priority. I would do the class. I would do the networking. I would view the facilities. But when it slipped, that's really when I stopped. Then it didn't become a priority. So number one was you got to keep it a priority. Okay. My second one issue was running with my head down, right? Because this is real life, right? I mean, you got issues coming up all the time. You got schedules, you got production, you got people issues. And it's the nature of, some things are urgent, you got to do it. Okay, so the firefighting. I remember when I was doing the project management training here, invariably there was a student in every course who would argue, I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to schedule my day, and I sure as heck don't have time to communicate with other people what my priorities are. And but they were committed to it. They loved the firefight, and that's the kind of the second barrier. Yep. And my third one was the classic procrastination, right? So I'd get a course notice from the manufacturer's lines and say, gosh, it looks like really interesting. I'm going to go to that, but I'll sign up next week.
Yeah. And
I'll sign up next week. And I'll sign up next week. And then it's like, well, it's next Wednesday. I can't go next Wednesday. So that procrastination, I didn't finish it. I didn't get it done. Or, we should do lunch sometime. We should do breakfast sometime for that mentor. I should do the plant tour. I remember, I was in one of the beginnings of the peer groups was the presidents. I had joined that early. Yep. And we had one member that I don't think he ever came to a meeting unless he hosted it. And it was because he's too busy. And so procrastination is kind of the one that kind of catches up on you. Just if you don't get it on your calendar, it does not happen. That's the most important thing. Get it on your calendar, follow through.
I remember when I first started managing peer groups, I kind of gulped because, a lot of executives, twice my senior, and I would bump into those business owners, presidents, and I would look at the data and I'd say, you haven't been to a meeting in 2 years. Why are you paying for this? Right. And sometimes the response would be, well, just in case the opportunity arises, I just want the opportunity to go.
It's true. And it's classic procrastination.
Yeah.
I'll do it next time.
Okay, so I actually listen to more audiobooks now than I do read books.
Sure.
I'll listen to an audiobook, then if I love it, like I'm listening to a lot of Alex Hormozi's books right now. If I love it, then I'll buy it and then I'll read it. He's got 2 out. I've read 1. And so that's really my listening and learning zone. I'm using those as tools and kind of my mechanism. What prevents you from listening and learning from others specifically?
So it's a little bit of a paradox. I think the more you know, the less you listen. And so, when I go into a meeting, because my background, I've studied this, I've been in companies, I've seen so many things over the course of my career that it's pretty routine. I've seen this. I know what the response is. I know what the issue is. And I can very quickly tell you, this is what you got to do. And so it robs the people in the room of that coming up with the answer themselves. And I'm guilty. So my daughter will tell that to me. She'll have a business issue. She'll bring it up, and so I'll give her the solution. It's like, Dad, that's not what I want. Okay, I want you to walk me through the process of solving it. The questions I might want to ask, don't give me the answer. And so part of it is that I'm going to know the answer, so I'm going to quickly give it to you. I don't have to listen to you. I'm the smartest guy in the room, okay? And sometimes you see it, though, where people just have position authority. I'm the boss, so I don't really need to listen to you. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And how many times have you heard a young manager say, I don't really like working for my boss? They say people leave, they leave bosses, not businesses. And it's like, I've got position authority. I don't need to listen to you. And it takes longer. It takes a lot longer. But what I find myself is that really, if I can slow it down, if I can engage the people, we'll always get a better solution. And there'll be more satisfaction, more ownership of the solution. So That's where I gotta be careful. It's like, hey, gosh, I know the answer. I just don't. I'm not gonna blurt it out, right? Right.
The last meeting I was just at, I don't know if any team members are going to listen to this one, but I came into the meeting. I thought, how could I start a fire with this one? I'm like, you can't start a fire with wet wood, right? Like you got to have that ready to go. Yeah. And so I really bit my tongue, asked some questions. What do they want to get out of it? I'm so grateful. We spent 2 hours. We bought lunch. We worked over lunch. They came up with the exact thing that I was like 100% willing to support. And I did not lead the witness or anchor them whatsoever.
That's leadership.
And
Kirby,
just to have leadership. It come together and have them lead it, I just thought, what a blessing this is.
That's leadership. And that's, you know what, that's also mentoring your team too.
If they're listening to this,
right.
Thank you for that last meeting. Do you have managers that want to become senior leaders, but they're not quite ready? Well, do what our top members do. Help them develop advanced leadership skills now, before you promote them, by enrolling them in our strategic leader certification. Click the link in the show notes to learn when the next certification starts. Okay, here's another one for you. Oftentimes, I will feel myself get defensive when I feel personally attacked. And I've also seen a lot of leaders like just have that snapback behavior and get defensive. And in some cases, I'm like, okay, probably justified, but still didn't help anything. How do you recommend people not get defensive?
So that's a good question. I mean, nobody likes to be criticized, and particularly nobody likes to get criticized in public. Right, so that's always going to create the emotion. So the other thing that I'll argue, though, is the higher up the organization you go, the thicker your skin better be. Okay, if you're the CEO and you can't take a critique from your board members, you're not going to last. I mean, if you throw your team under the bus, you try and scapegoat other reasons, it wasn't my fault, okay, you're not going to last. So at some point, you have to get thick enough skin to just say, I get it, it's not personal. The way I've defended against is, and this is something that's easier as you get older, you tend to mellow a little bit. So how I might have reacted earlier in my career versus now, it's different. It's just, first, I want to understand what you're saying. If you're speaking in generalities, the criticism, our quality is really deteriorating. Well, okay, so let me understand. What do you mean? Are our warranty costs going up? Are our returns greater? Does our we having more supplier rejects? I mean, so it's trying to get more specific on what really what kind of feedback you're giving me, so I can understand it. Okay, and if it's legitimate, then I should put some corrective action in place. Okay, just ignore it. Say, yeah, you're probably right, but I'm not going to do anything, well, isn't it? So if it's legitimate criticism, I make sure you understand it, and then validate it and respond. If it isn't fair, often it's okay. So let me understand. Okay, I don't have all of the information at my fingertips right now, but can I get back to you? Let me get back to you tomorrow, next week, when I've got the information. And sometimes that will dissipate any, the heat of the immediacy of the argument. And you also find it when people come back, they've kind of forgotten the emotion is fully dissipated, and you come back and it just becomes a factual conversation that's more collaborative. So, make sure you understand what the issue is. Make sure you receive it with as open-minded as you can. Do corrective action if it warrants, or just follow up with the facts before before it gets emotional. Yeah. And sometimes it just does. Okay, I mean, sometimes it does.
Oftentimes I'll see, and I'm really interested in the difference between leaders that are just getting started and then those that maybe have 10 or 15 years of experience, and the difference in maturity. And I'll see that first year leader just, they're guarded and they're not sharing much and they think it's all like secret sauce. And then that leader that's been doing it for 10 years are like, here's everything. These are all the facts, very specific. Right. I could be totally wrong, but this is the direction that we're going. And just how different that is in the maturity there is in different leaders.
You learn that. And you do tend to mellow a little bit more with experience and age.
Yeah. So much of it is about like execution based on how do we feel about this right now? Execution based on the data and feedback from customers. Right. Okay, a couple more before I let you go here. So you mentioned something related to like how sometimes leaders can go, okay, well, I kind of already know the answer. and therefore it can be harder to kind of listen and learn. I think this next question kind of teases that out maybe a little bit further. What assumptions do you think leaders make that prevents them from being coachable?
So when when I think about it, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but that potentially, one that when I think about this that might be unusual, there's almost an assumption that I'm going to be in this job for forever. The circumstances, the way I measured, isn't going to change, and I can continue doing what I'm doing, and life is good. I don't really see the need. And then they get a new boss, or then the company is sold, okay, or the performance expectations changed and you're laid off.
Yeah.
Okay.
COVID,
and,
tariffs, you name it.
That's right. I mean, there's this belief that current state is future state. And I think that's a really risky assumption because it gets you stuck in current state and it stops you from stretching. So I believe that. And when I look at, when I get asked to network, I was with the company for 17 years. Okay. And I didn't do this and I didn't do this and I didn't do this. Well, okay. That's something you should have addressed 10 years ago. So look for not only what you currently do, but what the next job is. Look for that mentor. And Kirby, I'm just talking about just reading about AI, chip technology, chip integration into robotics. Yeah. The current supply chain disruption that's happening now. Yeah. What things are going to look like in 5 years?
Quantum computing.
Quantum computing. Absolutely right. I think what we're looking at today is not going to be the same in 5 years. The acceleration of the change is going to be really happening. Yeah. And I think that's what you got. Part of it, you just got to look forward. I mean, you got it. I'm no scientist. Look forward.
But for some reason, I look at quantum computing and I think of cancer and I think we're going to figure this out. I'm actually excited about it, and I'm no scientist. Yeah. But I believe we're going to get there.
I suspect you're right. I think technology is we got challenges. Yeah, we got challenges. Ray Dalio is a really interesting guy. He's a billionaire, and he talks about our inability to have our politicians agree, the wealth gap. The trade practices. I mean, it's just that we got a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. But the pace of technology is going to be one of those. And so I just get in front of it. And I think that's it's not recognizing the need to get in front of where we are today is one of the reasons why people don't look and find coaches. I mean, they're out there. They're out there.
What are you excited about improving next?
So this is kind of a, this is a personal. So I just was telling you a little earlier. I've retired from full-time gig, and I view it as I've got an absolute clean sheet of paper that I can do whatever I want to. I mean, I've got a great wife. I've got successful kids. I've got a network. I've got friends. I've got some financial independence. So I've got this clean sheet of paper, and so it's when I look at this, it's all in the aspect of it's still improvement. Okay, so I start with relationships. Okay, so who couldn't be a better spouse? Who couldn't have a more intimate relationship with their child? Who couldn't be a better friend? So relationship is one aspect. And there's lots of stuff written on this is how do I do better at relationships? Physical. Fortunately, my daughter and her partner, her boyfriend are fitness junkies. Nice. So it's like I got some.
You're going to start working out?
Well, so I've been working out. I mean, you should be able to see it. I mean, you should be able to see this. I mean, come on, let's do those we'll do those push-up contests right now.
I did 40 today.
But you do it. But that's again, it's improvement. And then the spiritual is a little more. It's a little more personal. But that's good. How do I spend my time, talent, and treasures? It's good. And then from a business perspective, is I've had some people I've worked with closely over the years, and I've asked them to give me your opinion of my brand, okay, my value proposition. So, if you were to tell somebody about Steve Murray, what would you say? So, what I do, how I do it, how do I engage, what's my style? And I thought that's been really fun. It's given me a little bit of insight. And then I'm going to use some AI tools to kind of sharpen the message. And then I'll decide if do I want to do more on the business side. And, I'm on a board. I've got some operating partner roles that aren't full-time. But I'll decide. But it's really fun. I'm looking forward to kind of getting that independent input on here's how you're perceived, whether you know it or not, Steve. I just think that's fun. And you helped me too as well. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm excited that we got to reconnect. It's great to, pick your brain on this coachability topic and then learn about what's next for you. So thanks for making the time.
My pleasure, Kirby. Thanks for doing what you guys do.
I'm Kirby Snee with the Manufacturers Alliance, and this is the How Manufacturers Improve podcast. If you liked learning these high-level best practices from experienced peers, and you want your team to be able to access more in-depth process improvement and leadership training and education, I'd invite your company to become a member of the Manufacturers Alliance. To learn how top manufacturers are using their Manufacturers Alliance membership to develop their people, improve processes, and get better results, go to mfrall.com or just click the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.